What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the Spring Football Report, your weekly look at all things spring football. We talk the XFL, we talk the USFL here on the show. Happy Wednesday to you. This is the regular day that the show will go up. Episode 1 was on Saturday, just kind of the soft launch, but now we're every Wednesday coming to you right here. Got a lot to discuss on the show today. XFL Week 10, the XFL regular season is behind us. We're heading into the postseason. And then USFL Week 2 was quite interesting as well. Also have a guest, be joined by Eli Savoie. He is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Memphis Showboats on News Talk 98.9. Also has his own radio show on Sports 56, AM 560, and 98.5 FM there in Memphis. So we will talk about the Memphis Showboats, of course, the 42-2 loss to Birmingham this weekend. And we will also talk about just his overall feeling on the league, what's his thoughts after 2 weeks, and some fun stuff like that. And we'll get into his process on doing a broadcast and much more. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can find this podcast on the Phillip Jordan Media YouTube channel. I am eventually going to have a YouTube channel just for this show, but right now it is on the Phillip Jordan Media YouTube channel, which you can also find the Phillip Jordan Show, college football podcast over there. Eventually down the road, the Wiregrass High School Football Report will be returning. So a lot of cool stuff, content over there. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Now, how about let's jump into it. Let's jump into week 10 in the XFL and week 2 in the USFL. Now, I'm not going to go too long with these, but look, you're coming on Wednesday. You're a fan of these leagues. You know what happened over the weekend. But I'm just going to kind of give some thoughts over the weekend. And so I'm going to do it differently. So with the XFL week 10, just want to just kind of not go in order of the games. Let's do the North, because that was the most important thing. Seattle clinch. It's a very confusing tiebreaker situation there in the XFL. They win 28-9 over Vegas. It went to the 5th tiebreaker, which then went to the combined rate of points for and points allowed among all XFL teams, which ended up Seattle 5, St. Louis 7. That's how that went down. I was kind of wondering what was going on with Seattle early, because defensively they played really well. Vegas pretty much did nothing the whole game. Maybe Vegas was clocked out too, because it was the last game. They weren't going to go anywhere. So you kind of wondered that too in that situation. Ben DiNucci got hot in the second half. Overall, 339 yards. His third 300-yard game of the year, 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown toward the end of the first half, which Seattle went in with a 6-0 lead there. On the year, Ben DiNucci led the league in passing yards, 2,671 yards, 65% completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Definitely in the conversation for league MVP. Like I said, the Vegas offense really could never do anything. And that put Seattle in the playoffs, because St. Louis, they won 53-28. The points was good. They scored, but they pretty much needed to shut out Orlando in this deal. And they end their season at 7-3. Orlando 1-9. Look, obviously you could tell St. Louis was coming out trying to blow this thing away very, very early. They were pushing the ball down the field, just pushing the issue offensively. But Orlando had other ideas. They moved the ball well in the first half. It was 25-20 at halftime in favor of St. Louis. St. Louis did score 22 points there in the second quarter. Orlando, obviously, with another fake punt, scored a touchdown on that. Orlando, like I said, pulled out all the stops. Terrell Buckley said he, would love to see somebody go home. But A.J. McCarron was awesome in the final game of the season. 420 yards and 6 touchdown passes. Hakeem Butler, 2 touchdowns, 164 yards. St. Louis had 493 total yards, and that was pretty big with their running back Hill out in this one. And look, I'm just going to say this. Like, it. St. Louis is on main playoffs. Seattle, they are, and DC is going in as well. We'll get to DC's game in just a second. Look, it is what it is. It was a rule that was set in place before the season started that, hey, the top 2 teams in each division was going to make the playoffs. The XFL had no idea going in that this would be the case. This would happen, that you would have a losing record in the South make the playoffs, and then you'd have a 7-3 St. Louis team not make the playoffs. They didn't play in that. It's not intentional or anything of that sort. But they need to go into it and look at this situation. So, okay, let's just take the two division winners, because I've seen a lot of people in some groups I'm in on Facebook talk about, let's just get rid of divisions. I think you need divisions from a schedule structure. Makes it easy. 4 teams in a division. You play right division twice, and you play the other 4 teams once. 10 games. It's easy. It's simple. That's how you do it. But you should. I'm thinking a lot of people in this camp too. Top your division winners. That's your 1 and your 2 seed, regardless. You win your division, you're getting a home playoff game. But then after that, it's wild card. The best remaining 2 teams get in. So if you did it this year, DC would obviously be number 1. Houston would be 2. And then you would put Seattle at 3. And then you would have St. Louis at 4. So you would have a DC-St. Louis matchup in the first round. And you would also have a Houston-Seattle matchup. Then you get the best 2 teams in your championship game too as well. So, but that's not what it is. And I think the USFL should do this. And the CFL has always bothered me. Because look, especially the last few years, the East has been bad in the CFL. And some of those teams, I'm like, can we just seed this thing 1 through 6? I mean, 6 of their 9 teams make the playoffs. Let's just have like you would, 1 and 2, East and West be your 1s, and then just seed the rest of it from best record, just so you do always get the best matchup in your championship. Before I jump into what happened with the South Division and the rest of the games in the XFL, I want to play some sound from Anthony Beck after the game on Saturday, and this comes to you from the St. Louis Battlehawks Twitter account and the YouTube channel over there at the XFL. Here's what Anthony Beck had to say after the game. Obviously did not know if they weren't going to be in the playoffs, but he kind of felt like a coach knowing that probably was their last game of the season.
Kind of hit me a little bit in the locker room.
Let me tell you about
I've been there, but I was that guy that wanted to be there, play hurt, never miss a game. But they asked guys to go out there and, score 50-plus points, whatever it was. I mean, it's a lot. It was great for the fans. It was great to watch. It was exciting TV. But, man, that's, it's a lot to ask from your team. We're 7-3. It's a pretty damn good year. Got a really good team. Thank the fan base for coming out, supporting them. Just awesome experience for them. Players really appreciate it. I'm appreciative too. So.
And that was Anthony Beck after the game. Once again, audio coming from the Twitter account from the St. Louis Battlehawks. And obviously a coach that felt like, you could tell after that 53-28 loss, like I said, they played the first game on Saturday and Seattle didn't play to the final game on Sunday. Sound like a coach there that knew that they weren't going to make the playoffs. But let's see if the XFL changes that going forward next season. Over on the rest of the games, and this was the second game on Saturday, DC beat San Antonio 29-28. I thought early on in this game, DC came out and really established a lot of things. They were playing really well. They got 19-3 early in the second quarter, led 19-11 at halftime, but give San Antonio credit. They did not give up. They continued to fight. San Antonio took a lead with 5:16 left when running back Jaquez Patrick with a 2-yard touchdown, and then Jack Cohn hit Jonathan Hillman for a 2-point to go up 28-22. But then DC showed championship mettle by responding, and Jordan Talmu led the team down the field. They got a 40-yard touchdown by him rushing, and also a 1-pointer to get the lead 29-28. And then San Antonio moved the ball down the field. John Parker Romo missed a 53-yard field goal that would have won the game with 30 seconds left. If I'm being critical here, with Hines Ward a little bit. I will say this. I think they should have been more aggressive getting the ball closer for the kicker. He's been great all year for them. Tremendous kicker all year has Romo. But I would have tried to get the ball closer. This is kind of me just being a little critical of what Hines Ward and the coaching staff did there. And, of course, that made the Houston-Arlington game really meaningless. It put Arlington in the playoffs. Houston was going to have home regardless if they won or not on Sunday. They did win 25-9 against Arlington to end the year 7-3, and then Arlington closes 4-6. Now they will play this upcoming week in the playoffs. Arlington will go to Houston. Brandon Silvers did not play in the game. Arlington was very vanilla, and Houston played a lot of backups past Brandon Silvers too. So it kind of was what it was. It's one of them deals. I'm going to close out with my power rankings. I got DC as the best team going to the playoffs. Seattle number 2, St. Louis 3, Houston 4, Arlington 5, San Antonio 6, Houston 7, and Orlando comes in at 8 to close out the season in my XFL power rankings. All right, now let's quickly look at USFL Week 2. So you going into this week, okay, off of week 1, what do we learn? What were we looking at? And I'm just going to say this, humble brag. I was 7-1 on the picks. The only game I missed, I had picked Arlington to beat Houston. So I was 7-1 on my overall picks from last week. Just New Orleans and Houston. New Orleans won 38-31. New Orleans goes to 2-0. Houston is 0-2. Scoreless first quarter. Seemed like the offenses took a while to get going, but when they did, they got going. And the star of this game was New Orleans running back Wes Hills. He had a big game in this one. Over 100 yards in the game, 110 yards to be exact, 3 touchdowns off 18 attempts. He scored the first time for the Breakers, and he also closed the scoring for the Breakers. He scored the first touchdown with 11:43 in the second quarter on a 19-yarder, then a 14-yarder with 42 seconds left after they got the ball back off a Kenji Bahar interception. He also had another touchdown late in the fourth quarter with 3:48, 3 yards. That put New Orleans up 31-24. And what was big about that last interception with Kenji Bahar, I mean, it was 31-31. They had the ball, and he just threw a bad pass and got intercepted. He played well or better than what they did last week. Houston did offensively. They were better when they got beat 29-13 against Michigan last week. He was 18-30, 266, 3 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions. They had 4 turnovers in the second half last week against Michigan. So turnovers are an issue for Houston right now. Other stuff too with New Orleans. McLeod Bethel-Thompson was 23-34, 251, 2 touchdowns. And a big game from their tight end, Sage Surratt. He had 11 catches for 121 and 1 touchdown. Big game coming up this weekend against Birmingham for New Orleans. Next up, Birmingham beat Memphis 42-2. I'm not going to talk much about this because we talk about this with Eli Savoie in just a few moments. So not going to get too much in this. But Birmingham came out offensively, looked really good. Alex Magoo, 301 yards, 4 touchdowns. They really pushed the ball down the field. Jay Sternberger, tremendous game, 5 receptions, 126, 1 touchdown. But Magoo hit 4 different guys, 4 touchdowns. No Jamar Smith, no Bo Scarborough. And the running game was solid. Zaquandre White, former South Carolina running back, had 75 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. They outgained Memphis 463-183. I think Birmingham did a really good job of stopping up front the run game of Memphis, forced Memphis to throw the ball, and then you get up 14-0 early. And then Memphis, I think, showed some things in the second quarter. I thought they were going to kind of get some offense going, but they just couldn't capitalize on some positive things offensively. And then Birmingham goes up 21-0 to close out the first half, and it was downhill in the second half from there. We did see quarterback Ryan Willis for Memphis, who was the 2001 Spring League MVP. We'll see what happens with Memphis with the quarterback position going forward, because we saw Cole Kelly in the first game, and now we see Ryan Willis. Was that planned? Or I don't think Ryan Willis was planned. That was trying to find some momentum, but he fumbled the ball. They put Brady White back in, but we'll see what Memphis does this week. They are now 0-2. Birmingham's 2-0, and Memphis will play Houston. New Jersey defeated Pittsburgh 23. This was kind of a hard watch defensive game. Both these offenses are having issues right now. I think quarterback's a big reason why. New Jersey held Pittsburgh to 166 yards and sacked the quarterback 4 times. The game was tied at 3 at halftime, and Chris Orr, the linebacker, had 10 tackles and 1 sack. Pittsburgh used 2 quarterbacks in the game again, James Morgan and Troy Williams, and really were not effective. 8 of 14 for Morgan and an interception and a fumble. Troy Williams had 70 yards, 11 and 60 passing, and only 70 yards. So Pittsburgh got to go drawing board and got to figure out what they're going to be offensively. Michigan defeated Philadelphia 24-10 to go to 2-0. Philadelphia is 1-1. I think a lot of people thought, okay, Cook is what he did in week 1. And then you look at Josh Love, what he did in week 1. We're going to have a high-scoring game, which I didn't feel that way. I thought it was going to be a defensive game because I was kind of curious what Philadelphia would be protecting Case Cook, because I did not do it in week 1 against Memphis, and I didn't do it here either. He got sacked 4 times. He was 29 of 45, 280, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I really don't think either quarterback played good here. Josh Lowe was 15 of 30, 131 and 1 touchdown. He also threw 2 interceptions. Case Cook just looks banged up, like he was favoring a knee and a shoulder. After the game, it came out that they said there with Philadelphia that Cook is okay. Nothing to be worried about. So we'll see on that. The star for the game, though, for Michigan was the running game and the defense. Reggie Corbin had 131 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. Offense did a great job opening up stuff for him. He scored with 52 seconds left in the third quarter on a sweep to the right to go up 17-10, and then he put the game away with a 52-yard run around 6 minutes left in the game. And the Michigan defense, once again, can't say enough positive about them. 10 tackles, 1 interception for linebacker Frank Gitta, 8 sacks on the game, 6 takeaways in 2 games so far. They were 2-8 last year. They're 2-0 to start this season. They're +5 and leads the league in turnover margin in 2 games, +5 there. Breland Speaks had another good game too, another sack. He has 4 on the season, which leads the league, and that leads me to my USFL power rankings. Birmingham at number 1, Michigan 2, New Orleans 3, Philadelphia 4, New Jersey 5, Houston 6, Memphis 7, and Pittsburgh sits at 8. All right, guys. We are now going to jump into my conversation I had earlier on Tuesday with the play-by-play voice of the Memphis Showboats, Eli Savoie. All right, everybody, this week's guest is Eli Savoie. You can check him out every morning on Sports 56 AM 560, 98.5 FM there in Memphis. I believe it's 7 to 10 every morning. He is the play-by-play guy for the Memphis Showboats, which can be heard on News Talk 98.9. Also does the Memphis Hustle games, the G League team for the Memphis Grizzlies and high school football, does some Ole Miss stuff. So Eli's a busy guy. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking. We're going to talk Memphis Showboats, but I appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, no problem at all. Happy to be here.
Before we get into what was, we were talking a little bit about it off air. The Memphis Birmingham game from this past Saturday didn't go either way. I think either one of us thought it was going to go, but just coming into this season, the return of Memphis Showboats, of course, they were one of the original USFL teams from 83 to 85 there. What was the energy level coming into the season around the Memphis Showboats there in Memphis?
There's been a lot of excitement and going into their first game a couple weeks ago when they had a big crowd. And I mean, it was a great atmosphere. There's just been, ever since the announcement came that the Showboats were back, because back in the 80s when they were a part of the USFL, they led the league in attendance. Like, it was a very well-supported thing here in Memphis. And so just the idea of having them back, and a lot of people who you can remember going to those games, maybe as a kid, now as an adult, that opportunity to go out there. There's been a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. And so it's been a lot of fun to be a part of it and just kind of see that first game here in Memphis a couple weeks ago, and just the crowd and everybody, the excitement that there was around it.
Yeah, and everybody out there maybe that does not know, pro football legend Reggie White was one of those Showboats back then in the 80s too.
Yeah, it's he was certainly the name that everybody remembers from those days. And, it's obviously a little bit different now because in those days they were, competing with the NFL and getting those types of players. Now it's more of a training ground type thing for the NFL. But it's been good football. The first 2 weeks of the season, it's been fun to watch and see. I think it's, these are a lot of guys that are going to get that opportunity. Of course, last year you had the league MVP get a chance to go to the NFL, become a Pro Bowler there. So it's fun to see these guys who continue to chase their dreams. So, they're playing hard because every game could be that one that is the key for them to try and get that opportunity up at the NFL level.
Yeah, and I've always had a passion for these leagues, watching them. I mean, I've been doing it since the original XFL in 2001. And it is because I always tell people, I mean, I guess everybody thinks if you don't make the NFL, you're not a good football player. But there's plenty of tremendous football players out there. Maybe they didn't get the opportunity. Maybe went to a smaller school. Maybe to the NFL's opinion, they're not the right size. So it is great, I think, having these leagues just because it's giving more people the opportunities, more coaches, officials, broadcasters, everybody. I think it's a very positive thing with these leagues.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, there's so many. I mean, just think about the pure number of football players there are at the college level. And, obviously there's an elite group of those and they're going to be NFL. But there's this huge group of guys who are in that borderline type team where they're, some will get the right opportunity and be in the right position and they may get on an NFL team and they might stick there. But there's so many others that it's just about getting that right opportunity. And these leagues give them the opportunity to stay active, to continue to work on their games and to continue to try and get that. I mean, so many of the guys in this league have been on practice squads for various NFL teams. I mean, they're right there on that borderline and it's just trying to get over the hump. And that's why you see some guys that suddenly get that opportunity. And it's great to see when they get that opportunity and make the most of it. And, it's just talking to these guys, how much it means to them and how much they want that opportunity to be able to get to that next level and stick there.
And the first 2 weeks, and you alluded to it a little bit. Of course, the first loss to Philadelphia at home, 27-23, really fun game. Memphis had an opportunity with the ball at the end to win it. Of course, the Birmingham game, 42-2, did not go anywhere like Memphis wanted. But just the first 2 weeks with this team, just what have been your thoughts seeing them the first 2 weeks?
Well, certainly the first week against Philadelphia, there was a lot of positives, and even Todd Haley, the head coach, talked about he saw positives in really every area. Now, they made some mistakes that cost them the game. They missed an extra point. They missed a field goal. They threw an interception on their first drive down in the red zone. They had a big personal foul penalty that cost them 7 points because they were about to get the ball back. Instead, Philadelphia keeps it, goes down and scores a touchdown. So you come out of that and you're thinking, all right, Philadelphia team in the championship game last year, obviously one of the better teams. They've got a good quarterback, a lot of guys back, and hung right there and had a chance to win it. There were positives everywhere. And then last week, going to Birmingham, playing the defending champions, it's going to be a tough one. But and Memphis had a lot of injuries, but Birmingham had a ton of injuries and lost a bunch of guys. And it was just nothing went right. It was from the get-go, really. A couple of opportunities on the first couple of drives of the game on some third downs where receivers were open and they weren't able to hit them. The defense just could not get a stop on third down. And then it just kind of started ballooning from there, and it just got worse and worse. And it's again they had some key injuries. The offensive line is beat up. They lost Matt Burrell, their center, in week one. If you talk to the GM and coaches, he probably was the best offensive lineman they had coming in. They then lost another offensive lineman in the game last week. Antonio Reed, one of their safeties, not having him last week was really costly, I think, against Birmingham, because Jay Sternberger, their tight end, is fantastic. He's a guy that I think will be back in the NFL after the season is over. But in the end, they've got to figure out the quarterback position. And right now, Brady White has been the guy. Brady White is very popular here in Memphis from his days at the University of Memphis, and he put together an amazing record-setting career at the University of Memphis. But through the first two games, he's made some costly mistakes. He's thrown 2 interceptions, in the red zone, deep in opponent's territory, missing some guys that are open. They've got to get better quarterback play right now if they're going to be competitive and have a chance, down the road to try to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and watching the game on Saturday night, Birmingham came out first quarter, they were on fire. Alex Magoo, in last year, and when you've seen him in the past, he's always been kind of more of a change-up quarterback, read option, run with the ball, more of that stuff. But his passing, like you said, with Sternberger, was that guy's going to be back in the league next year. I felt like in the second quarter, though, Memphis kind of missed some opportunities there. They could have got some points on the board, maybe perhaps got some momentum, and then Sternberger scores a touchdown. They go up 21-0. That second quarter, to me, really, it wasn't first quarter, maybe the second quarter that kind of tilted the game all the way to Birmingham's direction. Did you kind of see it that way there in the second?
Yeah, they finally got some things going offensively, and they had the drive. They got down. I can't remember exactly how far they got, but then they had a false start penalty followed by a sack, and so they backed up. That on that drive, they end up missing a field goal. Then the next drive, get back down there again. They throw an interception down in the end zone. So at that point, if you go get maybe 2 touchdowns on those 2 drives, you might be right back in the game, and you've got some momentum going into halftime. But as it was, you get to come up empty on both of those drives. They go down, they get some points there before halftime, and you just felt like at halftime it was over, and because you just didn't know if you were going to get enough stops, that even if you basically came out and scored on every drive, you weren't going to be able to catch up with them. Plus, that puts the pressure. Now you got to throw constantly. That lets them turn loose on a beat up offensive line. Alex Collins at running back, I think is one of the best running backs in the league. The guy had a lot of success at the NFL level. Well, at that time, you've kind of taken him and the running game out of it because you're trying to come back. So it made it harder on Brady White and the receivers, and you were without Derek Dillon, who's probably the best receiver as well. So it was just tough. That second half, it was just it was a snowball effect, and kind of nothing went right at that point.
Yeah, see a lot in games. That's kind of it does how it goes. And with Alex Collins too, and I remember him at Arkansas, how good a running back he was at Arkansas too, and people remember him. And like you said, the NFL too, because he was being highly touted. I know I saw a lot of social media stuff talking about him. But you're right. Once you get down like that, and especially with the different kind of timing, the games do go by a little bit faster in these USFL games than an NFL, especially a college game. So you're down 21. It seems like there's more imperative where you just got to throw the ball. And like maybe if this was the timing rules for NFL or college, you could say, okay, we could still run the ball a little bit, but that really does limit you with the way the clock does run in the USFL too.
Yeah, no doubt. It's that's been one of the interesting things is just kind of seeing these games, and I think our game that this past week, I think it was like 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that. I mean, it just doesn't. It's hard to believe they could play a football game, but with the short halftime of just 10 minutes, and with that clock running, even on incompletions through most of the game, man, it does. They move along pretty quickly.
Yeah, they do. They do. I think college football's not that fast, but they're trying to do that too as well with what they got going on here soon. And obviously, you're there in Birmingham. You saw the Stallions. They're the defending champions, 2-0 now. What impresses you about them?
Well, sir, the thing that's really impressive is you look at what they lost to injury in week 1 and how it doesn't affect them. And it's the same thing as last year. Last year, Magoo's the guy. He gets hurt week 1. Jamar Smith comes in, and they end up losing 1 game and going on to a title. This year, it's switched around. Jamar Smith is the starter. He gets hurt. Magoo comes in, and Magoo throws it all over the place. He's running all over the place. They've got a really good group of receivers. Defensively, up front defensively, they are really, really good. That defensive line they've got, I think, is really, really good. They've got the best kicker in the league. And this, with that, the kickoffs at the 20-yard line, the ability for a kicker to kick it down to about the 5-yard line like he's doing is huge. In our first game against Philadelphia, we started just about every drive, it seemed like, near midfield. Now, all of a sudden, you got him kicking a touchback, or you're getting it back at the 5-yard line, and you're starting back at the 25, maybe the 30-yard line. That's a big, big difference. And so they've just got a lot of good parts. But the embarrassment of riches that they have at the quarterback position was crazy, that they have both those guys who it really doesn't matter. And then when Smith goes out and they go out and Sloter, who was the all-league quarterback last year. They just keep adding quarterbacks, and they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be really, really tough to beat from what I saw.
And we got to talk about this long. I'll just touch on it a little bit. Just your kind of thoughts with the ending after the game with Todd Haley and Skip Holtz, that whole situation.
Listen, I mean, I understand. I'm one of these guys. I'm the whole running up the score thing. To me, it's, you know what, you're playing football, and if you don't want them to score, let's stop them. I understand where Todd Haley's coming from a little bit. Because it was surprising when we're doing the broadcast, it's ticking down to the 2 in the morning. I said, okay, I'm sure that should be the final snap. I'm like, well, hold on, they're coming up to the line of scrimmage here, but that's not a 2-minute warning. Sure enough, they snap it with 2:01. They run that play. They get stopped, and then they come out of the 2-minute warning, and they throw for the touchdown when you're already up 35-2. And certainly I can understand where a coach can be a little upset about that. I get it. You don't want to see that. And was it necessary? No. It was also the thing, it was a little weird to me that they never took Alex Magoo out of the game, like that he was the guy in there. Because if you bring in backups and you throw the ball there, I am a little more understanding of going, well, you need to let your backup quarterback get reps and do these things and run these plays. You don't know if you might need him. So the fact that it was still Magoo in there doing it was a little bit weird to me. But again, I also come from the side of, listen, if you don't want it to happen, then just you got to figure out a way to stop him.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, well, and it's emotional right there into the game and stuff like that. You just, it's kind of one of them deals. But this week they play Houston. Both teams are 0-2. Obviously, a 10-game season, you want to avoid going 0-3, and especially when Birmingham and New Orleans, they are 2-0. They play each other this weekend as well. Just so, what are you looking to see this weekend when they play Houston?
Yeah, it's because we've talked about that as well. Is that a 10-game season goes by so quick. If you're 0-3, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard, knowing that one of the other teams is going to be 3-0 for sure. And so, yeah, this week it's going to come down. One, hopefully Derek Dillon is going to be back healthy. They need him outside. Same thing with Antonio Reed in the secondary at safety. They need both of those guys. They're big, important parts of this team. But it's going to come down. I don't know right now if it's going to be Brady White back at quarterback. We'll see. I'm going out to practice later today. I'm interested to get out there and see if he's still taking all the reps with the ones, if maybe it's one of the other guys. I kind of want to see Cole Kelly get a little bit of a chance. A big kid, 6'5", huge arm. Give him that chance, maybe. Obviously, I'm not there in practice, so there's a reason he hasn't gotten that opportunity over Brady White yet. But they're still figuring that quarterback position out, I think, and they've got to get it figured out again here soon because, as I said, it's this season's it goes by in a hurry, and I don't know if maybe they'll look out there as the XFL season's wrapping up, if there's some guys that might be available out there. This is a team that last year had Jordan Ta'amu, who was the leading passer in the league. So it's a little bit different now at that quarterback position for Todd Haley and the staff.
Yeah, and like I said, that's a guy that's gearing up to play the playoff game and maybe win a championship over in that league. So, yeah, they had a good one last year. And I've thought about that, too, with these leagues overlapping, if there would be some quarterbacks that get cut and then, do that. But that's gonna be fun. I'm really interested, looking forward. I was happy when the Showboats came back. My exposure to the old XFL, because I'm 36, so I was born in '86, so that was a year after. But ESPN Classic used to show a bunch of old games, and that was kind of like my education into it, into USFL as a teenager. But
it's amusing when you look at for the people who don't know about the old USFL. If you go back and look at the names that played in that USFL, you understand it was a different thing. Like, they were legit. They were going to get some of the best players out there and competing with the NFL. And obviously that in the end, that ended up being their downfall. But I mean, there are some great names. I mean, Hall of Famers that played in that USFL. And I was talking about Reggie White here, but you just look around, man, the names that were in the original USFL, there were some big time names.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time I watched one. It was a Houston Gamblers ESPN Classic game, and I was like, I didn't know Jim Kelly played in the for the Houston Gamblers, and they were throwing the ball all over the place. I said, who knew? I didn't know that. So it was one of those education things for me with ESPN Classic. Before I let you go, and I'm kind of a nerd about this. I could always like talking to play-by-play guys or other broadcasters. For you, like especially going into football, or I know you do basketball too as well. What's kind of like your process as you're getting ready to call a game?
It's just um, trying to get as much information as you possibly can, and the internet's a wonderful thing when it comes to that. That's especially in leagues like this where these aren't guys who you watched play maybe college football on a weekly basis. They're a little bit more unknown. So being able to look up bios from their old college teams, everything else, anything you can find online, and just trying to get as much information as is possibly available, and then trying to commit as much to memory. And that's for our team, especially with football. I mean, it's so different than basketball because football, it's hard to see. I mean, where our booth is here in Memphis, we are way up there. Like it's not easy to see numbers all the time. So when you do see them, you got to be able to, off the top of your head, almost remember who that is and everything else. So just committing stuff to memory as much as possible, especially for your team. And then you can work as far as the other teams go and talking to as many people as possible, kind of getting an idea of what to expect. It's great, obviously, with this league to be able to watch. Going that first week, it was so much unknown, but now I can go back and watch the first two Houston games and know kind of what to expect, what they're wanting to do, who the main guys are, all of that stuff. So, it's just getting information upon information is the number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll always hear, and I try to do this with this, or even when because I do help with the broadcast. I'm not just a producer at high school football games. There's never too much information. There's ever, too much you can add. It's better to have too much than not enough. But anyways.
Well, and when you get a 42-2 game, it helps to have some other stuff to talk about.
I wasn't going to bring that up. I mean, I know a little bit what it's like doing high school football games, and they kind of go that direction. Absolutely 100%. Those are not the funnest ones to do. So you always hope for either your team's on the other side of that you're associated with, or it's a really close game. You got, compelling stuff throughout the whole game. But anyways, Eli, this has been compelling. I appreciate you coming on. I've enjoyed this conversation with you. But if listeners, viewers, want to check you out, the radio show you do every day, any of the telecast, the broadcast you guys do for Showboats or the team, where can they find you?
They can find my radio show on sports56whbq.com online. They can do it there. The games are on 98.9 FM here in Memphis, which you could go to newstalk989.com and get them there. I'm on Twitter at Eli560. So wherever you can find me, that'd be great. And certainly I appreciate you having me on, and always happy to talk a little Showboats football.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, and hope I can have you on again sometime down the road when it's a little bit more of a compelling game to come off of. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, hopefully, yes. So hopefully the next time we'll actually score some offensive points before we do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But as always, and again, thanks for the time, Eli.
Thank you.
All right. So there was my conversation with Eli Savoie. Check him out. You heard where to find him, and his broadcast with the Memphis Showboats. And let's jump into it real quickly. I'm not going to be too long on the picks. Once again, I want to remind you guys earlier. Last week I went 7-1. Only 6 games this week with just the playoffs with XFL. Then week 3 with the USFL. So only 6 games this week. I was going to do the XFL playoff games first. On Saturday, the South Division Championship between the 4-6 Arlington Renegades and the 7-3 Houston Roughnecks. Houston is a 6-point favorite in this one. The over/under is 41. Of course, can't go off last week because both teams were vanilla. Brandon Silver's didn't play. Just look, it was what it was. Wasn't a meaningful game last week, despite what Wade Phillips was trying to push out there. Houston was 2-0 though against Arlington this year. They played in week 2. Houston won 23-14 in that one. Arlington had a lead in that one, 14-11 at halftime, but Houston came back and won. Like I said last week, 25-9. Houston won that one. So you can't really go off the first one either because Luis Perez was not there. He was not the quarterback. He was still in Vegas at the time, and he's changed things offensively. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. I would take the under because, one, I think this could be low scoring. These are two good defensive teams. Both are good at getting at the quarterback and also, especially Houston, and both are also good at creating turnovers via interception. So I don't see a lot of points being scored in this one. I just think the Houston defense is going to cause a lot of trouble for Luis Perez. I don't think he'll have a lot of time to throw. I don't think Arlington's going to have much of a running game in this one. I think Houston's going to win this one. I don't do score predictions a lot because one with XFL is tough because it's a different kind of score. Let's go with a 25. No, I want to go with a 18-6 win for Houston in this one. Then on Sunday in the North Division Championship, this is going to be fun. This really could be the de facto XFL Championship game. 7-3 Seattle at 9-1 DC. 2:00 on ESPN. DC, they are a 3-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 48.5. I think it will get close to that. I think it's a high-scoring game. Last time these two teams played, DC won 34-33. And DC's defense has been getting up a lot of points lately. Last 4 weeks, week 7, they lose 37-36 to Orlando. And then the next week, Seattle, 34-33 win. 28-26 win over Arlington, and then a 29-28 win over San Antonio. And also, when you look at that, they've been in a lot of close games here lately. Their defense is not playing well. They have the best rushing team in the league. They have the third best quarterback in the league in Jordan Tiamu, who in the last meeting in that week 8 matchup, he threw for 247 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he went toe-to-toe with Ben DiNucci, who had 3 touchdowns in that one as well. So this is a tough pick because you can say Seattle, they're playing well. DC's defense, they're not playing well. That's going to be a raucous crowd there at Audi Field in DC. I think DC's going to control the clock or try to with their defense, with their run game. So I'm going to go with DC to win a very close game. Like I said, it's XFL, weird scores. I'm going to go with a 32-29 win for DC in this one. And then run through the USFL slate for the weekend. Starting on Saturday, 2-0 New Orleans at 2-0 Birmingham. This is the best matchup of the weekend. 11:30 a.m. USA. This does not have a line. The over-under is 48.5. High-scoring offenses, but we know what Birmingham can do defensively. New Orleans has had some slow starts. Birmingham's just playing really well from start to finish both games. I'm going to go with Birmingham here. I think they're going to get some pressure on McLeod Thompson, but if they can keep the running game going like they did this past week, they have an opportunity to get this game close. I think it's not going to be a 42-2 or even a 27-10. I'm going to go with Birmingham winning this one. I don't know about the New Orleans defense after what they gave up against Houston, and Houston struggled week before offensively. I'm going to go with Birmingham winning this one. 31-24. So close. I do think it will be close, but I think Birmingham's defense will cause enough plays. But McLeod Thompson, he looks and acts like a quarterback. He could have success here too as well. We'll see. We'll see. This is a big matchup, 2-0, early season battle in a 10-week season. You're week 3, you're getting close to mid-season. It's a big matchup. Another big matchup in the South for opposite reasons. We already talked about that with Eli a little bit. Houston at 0-2 versus Memphis, who's 0-2. 6 o'clock on Fox. Memphis is a 1-point favorite here. 43.5 over under. You just figure Fox owns the league. Let's put that 2-0 matchup in. But anyways, I'm going to pick Memphis. I don't trust Houston with the turnovers. I think that's an issue. We've seen that for 2 weeks now. They have an issue turning the ball over. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go with Memphis to win this one. I say 23-20. Close one here. I'm going to go with Memphis to get that win. Very important game. And really think about it. 0-3 could almost put you out of it already in this one. On Sunday, 0-2 Pittsburgh will play 1-1 Philadelphia. This will be the first games in the Detroit hub. 11 a.m. on NBC. Philadelphia is a 6-point favorite. 44.5 over under. I think Philadelphia wins this one by double digits. I don't think it'll be close because I don't think Pittsburgh can move the ball. All they're doing is kicking field goals. They have not scored an offensive touchdown in the first 2 games. I see Philadelphia winning this one 27-6. And then the last game, 3 o'clock on Fox, the home team finally gets to play in front of the Detroit crowd. 1-1 New Jersey will play 2-0 Michigan in this one. Like I said, 3 o'clock on Fox. Michigan is a 4-point favorite, 44.5 over-under on this one as well. I am going to go with Michigan to win this one to get to 3-0. New Jersey doesn't have much of an offense yet. They're still figuring some stuff out with quarterback. Obviously, they missed Luis Perez. Michigan's defense is all over the place. I told you what Breland Speaks could do, what they've done over the turnover battle. I just don't think New Jersey's going to be able to score here. Maybe they reach the end zone late in the game for a garbage touchdown. I think there's going to be a lot of energy around Michigan. I'm going to pick Michigan to win this one, 28-10. That's going to be the score in that one. And that's going to do it for the Spring Football Report. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is more of the regular show. Try to have another guest on the next week's show. Try to get somebody to talk XFL playoffs. So have an XFL guest. I know the first two were USFL related guests. We're going to try to jump into the XFL with a guest next week. Follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast available on YouTube, Phillip Jordan Media YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications. And please leave a comment on the video, and I'll read it on a future edition of the show. Also, you can check the podcast out on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you use Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. It means a lot if you do that. Leave a review. I'll also read those on the show. You can also email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Enjoy the XFL playoffs this weekend. Enjoy USFL Week 3. And I'll talk to you guys next week. You've been listening and watching the Spring Football.